afternoon. Great to see you all again here. Welcome back to the main stage here in the Gold Hall for the afternoon session of the R&I Days 2025 for this much anticipated panel that focuses on the roadworks and the accelerators as well for the EU's automotive competitiveness. This session will focus on the EU's plan for the R&I agenda for this sector. So I'm very excited to invite up on stage the European Commissioner for Startups, Research and Innovation, who we already met yesterday, but has kindly come back today to participate in a number of different panels. Katarina Zarieva, welcome to the stage. And for the very important industry perspective, we're thrilled to have with us here today Joachim Post, a member of the Board of Management at BMW, responsible for the purchasing and supplying network. And last but not least, we have Jan Vincent, the CEO of ACC, the automotive sales company, a joint venture between Total and Groupe PSA, specializing in batteries for EVs here in Europe. Welcome to Brussels. Thank you so much for joining us here. Let's kick off perhaps with the European Commissioner for your words on this cooperation and how it will work.
Thanks to the two gentlemen to join us to this really important panel, and thanks to the whole people in the room because it is the second day of an R&I Days, and I see the room is again very full. That shows that actually there is really a huge interest and also determination to put R&I, as we always very often said, at the heart of European economy. And this is not just an empty word, seeing how many people. One of my colleagues told me that he was waiting 1.5 hours yesterday to enter the building. Okay, which is something, yes. You know, we in Commission really believe that we should shape together with the automotive sector the future and the strategic agenda for R&I. You know, the Commission President and the whole team, actually a couple of commissioners who are part of this extensive dialogue with the sector. Actually, last week it was a second meeting with the President, or the third, to see we adopted the action plan for the automotive sector, but now we want to follow on the implementation. And I'm very grateful because at the same day, actually, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the 3 existing partnerships with the automotive sector. And the goal is to adopt together with them the strategic agenda for R&I for automotive sector, but also, which is the real goal of this MOU, it's actually to set together the joint undertakings for the next framework program. We already work a lot, and I think what is unique for this is that they are competitors sometimes, but they work together in join the efforts, join the resources with the scientists, but also between the companies in this pre-commercial R&I. So this is unique for Europe, I believe.
You mentioned, of course, that dialogue that, of course, the second one took place last Friday. It's an intense time for your sector. We're reading about it in the headlines every day in the papers. Joachim Post, let's bring in your perspective here on this collaboration and how, from BMW's perspective, you'd like to see it work out.
So, thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Commissioner Zaharieva, for setting up this important event and for all the support to support the automotive industry. And as I know very well from the supply chain, as you mentioned, since 5 months I'm responsible for research and development. So I know the whole supply chain from research to development to industrialization. And we see it's a really tough time for being competitive for the European automotive industry. And it's not an easy picture if you look in different technologies. And when we have to look on where we invest on research, on innovations, all those things, it's different to different kind of technologies. Let's give some examples. When you look on AI, AI is a little bit more far down the road because there are existing large language models on a very good level. And for us in the industry and to be competitive, now it's not the time to make an own large language model, with own data centers on the things. For us, it's more the applied industries to say, to bring this technology with advanced applied companies, to bring this technology in the car for our processes, for our products, to say we're a little bit more down for the road. And that's what we always have to think in a different way when we try to invest in technologies in Europe. Where is this technology standing? Battery technology is different. A lot of research is done. There's also a lot of research for the future when we think about all-solid-state battery. But when you look at an industry at us, we are in the middle because we have to industrialize technologies, and the scaling is the challenge for the European industry. So it's a little bit different when you think where you go in, where you jump in, and which technology. Also, software-defined vehicle. There is about how to build, let's say, organizations, communities, where we can work together with others to share software development, all the things to be competitive for future. So it's a challenging times. Therefore, I really appreciate these discussions you offer to support the industry, and the dialogue is one of the most important things, because we have to really think about where to invest, where to make research, and it's a holistic approach. Only if you know where you have to start and where you have to end, and what you need on the whole chain, you are successful in the end. So appreciate that we have this excellent dialogue.
Well, let's bring in then the perspective from Jan Vincent there. What are your aspirations for this dialogue and this collaboration?
Well, I mean, it's obvious that it's very important, this dialogue. And in that frame, what I like to stress is the importance of the battery industry. So we know that the European car industry is facing huge challenges, huge transformation. And in that respect, being able to rely on a competitive European battery industry is absolutely paramount. It's absolutely paramount for the car industry, for the European car industry, not relying in the sole hands of Asian suppliers, which is the case for time being, not to say for relying into the hands of Chinese suppliers. So from that perspective, being able to build this industry in Europe is in my view, absolutely paramount, not only for our battery industry, but for the car industry. And the point is that it's a very difficult journey, because it's an industry which was not existing in Europe 2 years or 3 years ago. We're building everything from scratch. We're building the competencies, we're building the physical assets, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a difficult journey which has to be supported. And that's why I appreciate very much the strategy dialogue which has been launched a few months ago.
So on that point then of support, Commissioner, how can you weigh in there with EU R&I funding to create more localized production, if you like, in innovation hubs?
Actually, a lot, and there's a tradition there. And battery was mentioned. Actually, this battery partnership, Battery for You partnership, is actually exactly the work that have been done in this partnership years for the battery production in Europe. Because I mean, I think we wake up during COVID when we realized that absolutely basic things that you even don't think where they are produced, and you go just buy everywhere, they were not accessible to our citizens. And then, of course, seeing what happened with the development of the different sectors, we realized that we should really focus more on our economic security and supply chains. So through Horizon Europe, actually, we have now 3 partnerships. We discussed yesterday about the new setting of the program, the new proposal of the Commission. We want a bit more to focus and the efforts. So that's why we proposed this first step for Memorandum of Understanding, but which is not an empty document. Actually, there are clear actions in this memorandum to prepare the joint undertakings, because we really believe that the 3 things are connected if we want a competitive automotive sector, in which we do. It's only for the 3 years, it's 1 billion euros with which we support the R&I for automotive sector, focus on that. And during the years, of course, we have done much more. But I think it's not only the funding, But exactly this coordination and this joining the efforts, pooling the resources, it's even more important than the funding itself. Of course, they need the support for R&I. And of course, we should also create conditions for scale, because scale was mentioned as well. I'm really sorry from time to time when I hear actually that, including from the companies, from automotive sector, because AI was mentioned as well, that we are so complicated that even our automotive sector prefer to invest in startups who are outside Europe and developing AI. And exactly this is what we try to do, is simplifying the regulation for the automotive sector as well, but also simplifying the rules in general and creating the conditions for scale in Europe. So this is something that should go hand by hand.
I think that's something
and the question that you raised about AI, what we should develop, it's really very, very important one. You know, in two weeks, actually, the Commission will adopt applied AI strategy. We were hearing from the private sector, not only from the automotive, but also from other sectors, that we are strong, actually. We have quite strong companies who are developing such kind of models. And we want to focus our efforts and support this development as well.
But as Mr. Vincent said, we're catching up here. This is a new industry we're in, as you said. What are the biggest roadblocks, to quote the title of the panel today, that are threatening the competitiveness of the EU here when it comes to EVs?
Well, I will start with some facts. First of all, you don't know ACC. ACC was created 5 years ago with private money and public money in the frame of the IPCEI to build this European battery company. And since then, we've grown. We are producing from now real batteries, which are equipping real cars, and we're pretty proud of the fact that the official car of President Macron, the DS number 8, is equipped with all battery. So we're not only delivering PowerPoints, we are delivering real stuff, real batteries. Having said that, many roadblocks. You need to know that 90% of the worldwide battery supply comes from Asia. CATL, the biggest player, has a market share of 40% worldwide. European batteries, for time being, since we're small, yet still are around 20% more expensive than the Chinese batteries, and it's clearly a hit for the European car manufacturers. So how is it possible to go beyond and to overcome those roadblocks? The first point is that undoubtedly we need some financial support for the years to come. Not for every time, not for always, but it's clear that it's an industry which is highly capitalistic. The first gigafactory we've built has cost 1 billion euro, and we currently finishing the construction of the second one, and an additional 1 billion euro. We are incurring a significant launch cost, and hence we need financial support for some years in order to be able to bridge this competitiveness gap, to give us some time to bridge it. Second point, we have to acknowledge that Asians are leading the pack. They've started 20 years ago. And hence, I consider that to speed up the learning curve, we need to partner with them. We need to partner with them. We need to do what they did 10 years, 20 years ago, setting up joint venture, 51% Chinese, 49 Western, with transfer of technology. We need to do the same in Europe. So simply, it's unpleasant. We were the teachers. We have to become the students. But that's the fact. That's the way to speed up the learning curve. And the last point is, I do believe that a progressive European local content should help as well, should be needed. Otherwise, honestly, for time being, if you are a purchasing guy of a car manufacturer, you're better off buying from China. You're better off buying from China.
But of course, Mr. Post, we saw last week the European Commission President in Strasbourg saying that the future of the car should be electric and it should be European.
I think it's not so easy, and you mentioned the right points. We should be humble a little bit on these technologies, on these things. And if others, like the Asians, have 20 years experience, the one is the research. What is the best chemistry, best technology for a battery cell? There we are excellent in Europe, to be honest. We can be proud. We have a lot of experience in it. The second thing is what you mentioned, the challenges on scaling. And once you have not 20 years experience, you cannot do it from 1 year to another. And you have to think about the holistic approach to say, it's not the right way to push a technology if you say, for example, we cut off a combustion engine in a certain year and everything must be done without any strategy in a certain short time. Partnering, I think it's the right way, because this technology industrialization, to make high-speed production, less scrap ratio, high OEE, all these things to make a cheap battery, because the customer won't pay the additional amount of money for a battery built in Europe than to a cheaper one comes from Asia. So we have to solve this. Therefore, technology openness is the key to give the industry the time to develop and scale these technologies, to say there are more than one solutions. Beside anything is feasible, and we can stay with a climate path, with technology openness, because there is always more than one solution. That's important. So we have to think about partnering, to say local content, to make incentives to get this partnering, joint ventures, all these points there, to bring the technology, the scaling of the technology, not the knowledge of the research, the scaling in a feasible way to Europe, to do that in a certain time. Because high investment, about more than 200-300 billions of euro investments to do this scaling in all over Europe in a certain time. Money must come from anywhere, and you must earn this money in the industry. So that's an important way. And the second thing is, we should also a little bit think about what's beyond. The way is electric to the future, and we as BMW are clearly committed to electrification. But there is a second thing we have to think about. Maybe there's not only one technology for future to decarbonize, there's also hydrogen. And we always have to think where we are more dependent on other geo-regions or less dependent on other geo-regions. Hydrogen offers an opportunity to decarbonize with less dependence on huge batteries and all the things, where maybe there's a way for Europe to be more self-owned technology, not this much dependency on raw materials, because not only the battery production you mentioned, the whole sub-supply chain is there in Asia. And if you are dependent on the anode, the cathode, or the other things, the materials, the refinement, then it makes you always stay dependent on that. And we have to think more open on the technology, more on partnering with the right partners, and to bring these partners in industry for growing up in Europe.
Commissioner, your thoughts on what you've heard so far, and also perhaps about the role that EU research can play here, making sure that Europe can not just keep up, but also one day perhaps be a leader?
Actually, I'm agree with everything what was said, and actually this is exactly what we try to do. And I think for I would say a record time first, we managed to make the requirements and the targets more flexible. And now the dialogue is ongoing. It was announced on Friday on our president that actually the impact assessment will be announced for the next step this year, not next year. It was so this is something that we are doing, and I really believe, and this is actually what we believe in the Commission, that we should really create the ground support, of course, through the instruments financially as well as we have, and joining efforts together to work to keep the goals, but at the same time, keep our sector also competitive And in Europe, this is very, very crucial for us. Automotive sector, it's a strategic sector, not only for a couple of the member states. I mean, if you see the map, almost in every member state there is some supply chain or some factories and thousands of jobs who are linked with the automotive sector. So for us, it's a real issue, and so we are working together with them to solve all the things that we discuss now. And I'm agree that exactly the R&I actually is playing the key role. And maybe because during the years we were thinking that, okay, we are so good in doing science, so good. We are leading in patents. We are outperforming everybody literally in science. We are the best educated continent. We invest in fundamental science, which was good because of the fundamental science we are able to have this innovation and patents. But somehow it was for us like enough to publish and then in some cases to patent, but not to make this patent a product. I mean, to bring this product to the market, or at least to produce it in Europe. It's positive that this time is over, and we are so much focusing on to develop this manufacturing technologies in Europe. And I'm completely agree that we should also think how to be on the whole supply chain. Completely agree. This is something. Clean hydrogen was mentioned. We have put a lot of efforts on clean hydrogen as well. I would add here also it's not linked that much with automotive, but I think it's linked with the competitiveness of the sector, all the industry in general, the fusion energy as well. So we are working on all the things that we were discussing. And if you see the proposal of the Commission for the next MFF on R&I, we have a couple of the moonshots. Minimum 2 are linked with automotive sector. So this is the way forward. I'm completely agree with what I heard.
This is the way forward, and the clock is ticking. If you were to prioritize perhaps the top 2 things to do in the next 5 years, what would it be?
There are not the one or the 2 things, there are a few things, because we are really living in challenging times. For, of course, what we talked about, technologies for decarbonizing, whether it's battery technology, whether it's hydrogen, there are a lot of things which are important in the next years. The second thing is software. And AI is coming with a huge speed. So software-defined vehicle, we are really focused. We invested a lot. We brought our first cars as software-defined vehicles. And it offers an opportunity for the future. But it's a huge effort for the other companies. So partnering in this sector is also very important. And AI, sometimes I feel that we not really understood what is coming up down the road there with AI. So, and the customer, when you look what is feasible on your mobile, the request from customer side to every technology we have in Europe will be very fast to deliver this performance, like they see on the mobile using AI, all the things there. So applied research and applied technologies to use this technology to bring that in what is a strength in Europe, this applied research, applied industry. I think that's a very important point in the next years.
And of course, AI is weaving into every discussion we've been having here. We've had 20 different discussions here on stage, and AI has weaved its way into everyone. Did you want to react to that?
Link with AI. I'm agreed that maybe we really cannot imagine, still don't realize what exactly it's coming. But because we think that we should realize, and we applied AI, it's something, strategy that we are going to announce, but the second part of the strategy will be AI in science. So we AI in science and science for AI. Those are the 2 things that we work to should join efforts. So I invite the automotive sector actually to be a big announcement in Copenhagen in the beginning of November. This RISE that we want, it's exactly to pull the resources, because what we need is resources, financial of course, compute power, but talent, crucial, and data. Join the efforts, member states, scientists, but also industry to work for it. So I invite also the automotive sector to be part of these RISE initiatives.
There you go. Another date for your diary in Copenhagen, of course, because Denmark is currently presiding over the EU, chairing the EU Council. Mr. Vincent, I want to go back to that point that I also put to Mr. Post about your priorities looking ahead.
Well, I'm going to speak for the battery industry. Obviously, I think building it in Europe is really of utmost importance for Europe, for European car manufacturers, for a very simple reason, which is if we don't have this industry built in Europe, European car manufacturers will rely only at some point of time on Chinese suppliers, and it will be a major threat for them, for an industry which is, as the Commissioner said, employing 14 million people in Europe. So building it, it's a difficult task, as I've explained. In Europe, we have not the lowest labor costs, we have not the lowest energy cost, but we still have our brains. We still have our brains. And I mean, mobilizing our brains to support scaling up of this manufacturing activity is, from my perspective, the best way to build this industry. And without a strong manufacturing activity, we won't have innovation in Europe. I mean, don't believe it. So we need to scale up, and for that, we really need the support of everybody in Europe.
And on that point of brains, we have a lot of them here with us in the room and also watching us online as well. And that was a very positive point, I must say, to conclude this conversation, because that does, in fact, bring this riveting panel to an end. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for being with us. Thank you also to Mr. Post and also to Jan Vincent. A round of applause.
Thank you.
So now, time to move on to the third theme of the R&I Days this year, which is the fifth freedom. The freedom of movement of research, innovation, and knowledge. As you know, the European Commission has big plans to have a true European research area. So the European Commissioner is obviously very busy, behind me just having her photo taken, and then I'll be inviting her to take a seat again for this panel. The moderator will be Signe Ratzo for this panel. Thank you so much, gentlemen. There's another panel now. Yep. You can go backstage for your mic. Yeah. Yeah. You, Signe. A little bit of musical chairs here on the stage today at the very busy second day of the R&I event 2025. Signe, great to see you. You'll be the moderator of this panel. Please take your seats if you would like to stay for this exciting panel, and if not, please leave the room. So, as we heard yesterday, the Commission has a plan up its sleeve, and that is the ERA Act. It's in the legislative pipeline, and our next panel will be asking, are we brave enough? The Commissioner, you'll be sitting down again for this panel. Lovely to have you with us. We're also joined by Kurt de Ketelare, the Secretary General of the League of European Research Universities, and Robert de Graaf. He's the President-elect of the International Science Council and also the former Dutch Education Minister. So we're very excited about this panel. Thank you so much for being with us. Take it away.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this session of the European Research and Innovation Days. The title we have chosen, which you can see, is ERA Act, Are We Brave Enough? This title captures both the opportunity and also the challenge before us. As we know, for 25 years, the European research area has been a central ambition to create a true single market for knowledge, where researchers, ideas, and technology circulate freely. Significant progress has been made via voluntary cooperation. However, persistent fragmentation, underinvestment, and barriers to mobility still remain. And this is why the Commission is preparing the European Research Area Act, or ERA Act. This will be a shift from voluntary coordination to a legislative framework, anchoring also the so-called fifth freedom at the heart of the single market for research and innovation. One of the takeaways of yesterday's discussion for me was that we really need a single market for the knowledge, for the researchers, for the innovators to move freely. This session, however, is not diving into the details of the proposal yet. This will come later. Instead, we would like to examine the political vision and also the main challenges. To help us, we have three distinguished speakers, Commissioner Ekaterina Zaharyeva, Robert Dijkhoard, President-elect of the International Science Council and also former Minister of Education, Culture and Science in the Netherlands, and Kurt de Kettelere, Secretary General of the League of European Research Universities. I'd like to propose the first guiding question for a round of interventions. Is Europe ready to be bold? What political vision should underpin the ERA Act to truly unlock the potential of a single market for research and innovation and implement a fifth freedom? So each panelist will have 5 minutes to reflect on how a binding ERA framework can demonstrate Europe's ambition to lead in science and innovation while safeguarding its core values and competitiveness. And I would like first to invite Commissioner Zaharyeva, then Robert Dijkhoard, and finally Kurt de Kettelere to reply to that question. Over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Signe. I don't know why you always start with me, but I will share something personal. When I was preparing myself for the hearing, of course, in my mission letter was the ERA Act that I'm leading, and we should, with my team and the DG, propose the ERA Act. And of course, during the deep dives, discussions with the DG, with also some of the stakeholders, I was starting to ask, why fifth freedom? Okay, we have the 4 freedoms. We have free movement of people. Actually, scientists are people. I mean, they have to be able to move freely. And I was thinking, as a lawyer, my lawyer brain was, okay, what we need extra? And in the beginning, I couldn't understand what is the obstacles. But then I moved to Brussels. And it should be very easy, to move to Brussels. You have a work. It takes me so long for some absolutely normal things. I mean, even address, bank account, and mobile phone. It's turned out that actually, no matter that we have this free movement of people, we are still not exactly, at least this movement is not easy. And turn out, and then I start to dig more and more. What's the obstacles of one young or not young scientist to move and to publish and for the career development, or even to go from the university or research organization to the private sector and then back? It's turned out that it's really there are a lot of obstacles and problems. And if we want to continue to be proud continent of the best educated people and the top of the ratings of number of the researchers by population, we should really finally, I'm going to repeat this again and again and again, complete the single market and the freedoms that we are so proud of. So the goal, and we are really starting debates a lot, discussions, what we can include with the Act, having in mind that, of course, there's different traditions in the member states, absolutely different traditions sometimes between the universities, how they develop careers, and so on and so forth. From one hand, not, of course, to harm and to impose by power this the freedom, but do it together with the member states, which we believe that is crucial. So we really think that in this act, we should propose this as imagine like this 28 regime, like a minimum requirements for career development of the researchers, because like it or not, to be a researcher start to be less and less attractive for the young people and scientists to become a scientist. So I think this is part of the problem, this unpredictability, and also difficulties to free move. And of course, then sharing the knowledge, also free movement of knowledge, it's something that we think that it should be, we see in this act. Scientific freedom, something that is so under threat, unfortunately, now in the world. We want to lead by example. We want also to see in this act, and more investment in R&I. Some motivation, some incentives for the member states and the private sector to reach the target. And I personally believe that if you want to be competitive, this target is already low. But we are still not there.
Well, many thanks, Commissioner, for sharing your views and also the main challenges as you see. Now, over to Mr. Duckcroft.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And there's a saying that, anything that, any title that has a question mark in it, the answer is no. So probably it's true here too. I think we cannot be ambitious enough. And I think if you look at all the analysis that are underpinning, I think, my one-line summary is that often in Europe, the whole is less than the sum of the parts. National policies are fragmented, they're decoherent, there are various levels of ambition. And I think, the great challenge for Europe is to achieve scale, to do that, whether it's through the lens of economic competitiveness, of societal challenges, or science itself. And what we need to do, we have to kind of align. And I feel like the compass needles of national policies are moving all kinds of directions, and I hope that Brussels and the ERA Act will be like a magnet that will align those compass needles. And I think there are certain elements that the European Union brings that are absolutely essential for a vibrant research community. Researchers like stability and predictability. So sometimes I joke that the weaknesses of Europe, its complexity and inertia, can be turned from a bug into a feature because it provides this kind of stable environment that is absolutely crucial, I think, for research in all possible ways. We know talent attracts talent, and so working in this, having this European community is absolutely crucial. We see this also, by the way, in building the large-scale infrastructures, which I see as kind of the backbone of the European research enterprise. And another great strength that should be reinforced is, of course, the collaborative element, the open collaborative element of Europe. The fact that we have basically various rings of association, which actually, I think, is a growth model for the world. I think actually perhaps the most important thing, and I hope that will also be crucial in the discussion about the ERA Act, is, I would say, kind of the soft power. It's the values. There's the saying that politics is downstream from culture, that the soft elements of culture might determine a lot of the political movements. And if you think about what Europe would need to do, I think, is embrace those values that are, this moment, very much under pressure. Academic freedom, inclusivity, transparency, integrity, putting the next generation of researchers in the driving seat, empower them, and also a commitment to work on those topics that worldwide are under pressure, and often they are under pressure, not because they're irrelevant, but actually because they're very relevant to the political debate. So I would love to see enshrined also that Europe commits itself to subjects as public health, climate change, social inequality, diversity, that I think are great values that are not only important for Europe, but actually for the world. And lastly, I think, and that this will be wonderful if we put also explicit targets there, is the level of financial ambition. So I think there's still a long way to go for national governments to commit to the research and innovation expenditures that are needed. And I think the most powerful of all the recommendations that have been coming is to really turn Europe into a research and innovation union. And I think the ERA Act should be kind of underpinning that.
Well, many thanks for underlining really crucial issues, both on the challenges side, like fragmentation, but also the potential. And the potential to build large research infrastructures. This is something that we discussed yesterday also at the relevant session. Also, thanks for mentioning the open collaboration platform. Well, we've seen that this is something that has attracted also the other countries to join our program. Now, with my association hat, I'm glad to see that now we have 20 countries, soon hopefully even more, for whom this has really been important. But this could also be the possibility to bind them for our values. And this part indeed is very crucial. Now, finally, over to Mr. Teketeller.
Thank you very much, Signe, and thank you, first of all, for the invitation to be here this afternoon and to speak a topic which is very close to my heart. In fact, as a lawyer, it's one of my pet topics. The question, do we need an ERA Act, and is it the right time for an ERA Act, is for me, of course, an absolute no-brainer. In a sense, I think that the answers to that question are very clear. If we still needed the Letta and Draghi reports and the Draghi interviews over the past days and weeks to prove that, I think it's very clear that we all know now that a single market for research and innovation is key, not only for our researchers, not only for our innovators, our research and innovation institutes, but also for our own competitiveness, our own welfare in Europe, and to realize Europe's ambitions. Robert already referred to our ambitions in climate and energy and things like that. These are absolutely impossible to reach if we do not invest in research and innovation, and at the same time make sure that the 27 national systems get the necessary harmonization. I would perhaps allow a side note here that I still think it's a pity that we will have two separate acts, a Research Area Act and an Innovation Act. I think it would have been nicer and better if we would have an integrated Research and Innovation Act. Over the past 25 years, we have seen policy being developed on this topic. It's already a policy issue since 2000, when Commissioner Busquin launched the issue. It's already for 16 years a treaty obligation on which we as a European Union have been failing to realize it. Obviously, the bottom-up voluntary collaboration over the past 16, 20 years has a number of results, but those results are clearly not enough. And so I'm very glad that the present Commissioner, Commissioner Zagarieva, is taking on this challenge. I know very well, going back in time, that already in 2013, I was able to convince, at that time, Commissioner Geoghegan-Quinn to go for an ERA Act. But at that point in time, we were too late in the term of the Commission to really be sure that it still would be realized in time. I think that for all of us, it's absolutely clear that the four other freedoms, which we all know, the freedom of people, free circulation of people, of goods, of capital, and services, that all of those freedoms have been realized by top-down legislation. So I always have been saying it's quite an illusion to think that we are going to realize the fifth freedom just by voluntary bottom-up measures. Of course, they have their value, but we cannot realize a European research area and a fifth freedom without top-down legislation. And we need that top-down approach also, and we need it quickly, because we have to end also the present contradiction which exists for the moment between the Choose Europe story that we are rightly launching in Europe and the reality that we see daily on the academic working floor. It's clear that still a lot of challenges are there on the academic working floor which have to be solved through this ERA Act. And finally, last point that I want to make, the European Commission, the European Union in general with its institutions must be the driver for the realization of this European research area. They are the ones which have to make sure that the 27 member states go for a clear reform of their national research systems. We see, without mentioning names of countries, but that specific governments, specific systems, still consider the academic sector as a kind of nature reserves with protected animal species. This has to end. We have to go to a modernization of the national research systems in the 27 member states. So it's over with playtime. Playtime is over. We really have to get an ERA Act on the EU legislative books, and this really has to be done before the end of this term of this Commission and this Parliament. We have the momentum, we have the political support, so let's do it now all together.
Well, many thanks for also referring back to some moments in the history. So the legal act, the idea for legal act is not totally new. But as you also highlighted, and this is also the realization on the Commission side, that it's high time. It's high time for a legal act, because the voluntary actions, which certainly have been very useful, still haven't taken us where we would like to be. And certainly the competitiveness and welfare challenges are very clearly there, so that we can really need to use the momentum now. This will lead us to the second question, namely, now many thanks for highlighting the vision and also the main challenges. But now, what do you see as the key legal and institutional challenges? It's not something that we can take for granted, that everybody agrees at first sight. In order to shape a binding research area, what are the main challenges from that point of view, and how to overcome them? We will use the reverse order now in replying to that, actually, because it's the legal issues, so we have two lawyers here. So Kurt will start, and Commissioner will be the last one to then conclude on that point. Please.
Okay, thank you, Signe, and thank you for the possibility to start on that. I will look at the clock so that I don't use all the time also of all the other speakers. But in the call for evidence that has been put out during the summer for the ERA Act, with Leru over the summer, we have, of course, again reflected on that, and we know that it's a challenge to translate everything that has been agreed upon policy-wise over the past 20 years on ERA. We know what we have to do. We know what are the targets. But the question is, how do we put this in law? And that's the reason why Leru has submitted last week in the call for evidence a proposal for a regulation on the European research area. For those of you who are interested in this proposal for regulation, it only has 10 articles, so don't worry about this. It's quite manageable, I would say. There we say, let's go first of all for a regulation, not a directive, because a regulation has direct application in the 27 member states. Secondly, it's quite clear, taking into account the position of the Parliament and the Council, that we have to respect the basic principles of EU law: attribution, subsidiarity, and proportionality. So we have to go, at the end of the day, for a realistic proposal. Leru will not support all kinds of proposals that I already see floating around with long lists of topics on which the EU should regulate and adopt legislation. This is a dead-end street in our view, because at the end of the day, this has to be approved by the member states. And so that means that we have to respect also their competences in this field. This is a shared competence, so attribution, subsidiarity, and proportionality is absolutely key. The draft regulation, which has to be submitted by the Commission, should include the key objectives and principles of EU research policy. And the previous speakers have already referred to what are the objectives, the principles. I'm not going to repeat that. I would like to focus on two specific issues. Robert already referred to the funding. We really want to have one article in this draft regulation which puts forward not the 3% of EU GDP going to R&D, but really to increase this to 4%. I think that the Budapest Declaration of last year, where 3% by 2030 was put forward again, 20 years too late already compared to the 2010 target that we had, that we finally have to put this in law, that this 4% target must be backed by a burden-sharing agreement between the 27 member states, each with their own national target, and all based on national roadmaps and investment plans, which has to make this a reality. If I put on my academic hat as an EU law professor in the field of energy and environmental law, you have very nice examples of other acts in EU law, just referring to the EU Climate Act, for example, where this has been done for climate policy. I don't see why this would not be possible for EU research policy. And secondly, after anchoring in the ERA Act as well the target, the burden-sharing agreement, and the national investment plans, we also, of course, need enforcement of that. So the ERA Act should clearly indicate how member state and EU progress should be assessed. And also here we can refer to the European Climate Act because we have the same system there. The Commission evaluates the EU progress, the Commission evaluates the member states' progress. If there is not enough progress, consequences will follow. New legislation, recommendations to member states. Final point that I want to make, Signe, and I will end with that, is what about the actions which have to be included in this act? With later we have been putting forward a prohibition for member states to maintain and introduce new obstacles to the free circulation, an obligation to introduce or maintain active stimuli for promotion of the free circulation. And finally, we want to see in this ERA Act a legal basis for citizens, institutions, organizations to go to court in their own member state and to challenge member state authorities if those member state authorities are not eliminating voluntarily the existing national obstacles in their system to the free circulation of knowledge, if they are not taking enough positive stimulating measures to stimulate the free circulation of knowledge. In a nutshell, but more in writing on our website.
Okay, a long list, but very clear. Now over to Mr. Dijkhoff.
Well, I'm not a law professor, but so let me perhaps indicate some of what I see as the political boundary conditions that are necessary for this to be a success. So I think it's very important we frame this as a win-win. That is to say that every nation, every member state, every region will benefit. And so it's very important, I think, that we have a very kind of inclusive view of what we want to stimulate. You know, the good outcomes of this would be smart specialization, smart distribution of knowledge, and I think so that every region can contribute. We want to create not only these boundary conditions, but an atmosphere of mutual trust so that there's a lot of collaboration. I think it's also very important if we distinguish what's kind of the top-down regulations and compare that to the bottom-up forces that we want to stimulate, which are incredibly important for a vibrant research environment, is that we somehow avoid a kind of a muddy middle ground, which is neither strategic, nor has the kind of freedom for researchers to explore. And finally, I think it's very important that we have a broad view of what research is. Now, one of the things I worry about is that research is seen as an elitist, very restrictive part of society. And I think there are many, many parts in society where research flourishes. And I think it would be wonderful if the ERA Act has this kind of a broad view of what is research and innovation in the European Union.
Well, thanks. And now finally, Commissioner, how does it compare to what we have in plan?
Look, first of all, thanks for very concrete and meaningful intervention. I'm not going to speak like a lawyer because I believe that my presence here is more too political. And the name of the panel, are we bold enough? I think it will be clear when we propose, because actually I want to see ambitious proposal, but realistic one. If it's act which repeats more or less basic principles which we have already in the treaties, I don't see a big sense of proposing this act, to be frank. I want the act to make a change, the real change. Being realistic at the same time, because as Kurt said, it's shared competencies, and of course, as Robert, everybody should see the added value for the member states, for their citizens, for their regions, if we want this to be accepted in the Council and in the Parliament. I completely agree with that. And I think also that this is also a matter of trust between the member states, let's be frank. Why we are not there, we're talking about recognition of diplomas since I don't know how many years, since I was in the high school, to be frank. I mean, in Bulgaria was not a member of the European Union yet, but I was following what happens. And we're still not there. So it should be, that's why the soft measures and the ERA forum and policy agenda that we worked, I think it was exactly because there was a need to build the trust. And now maybe that's why we are delaying that so long, so many years with the act, is because I think it's we more or less increased the trust, and now is the moment to present this act. So my political message would be: Commission want to go ambitious, and so grateful for the support that I feel from the community, because without the support of the research organizations in universities, we are not going to be brave enough to be ambitious. No matter that I'm a very brave person, I prefer to try and fail instead of afraid that I'm going to fail, not even to try. So we want to be ambitious and to make a change. And I really believe that this would be possible only if we work through the whole process of drafting the legislation with the member states and the government, the respective ministries, but also with the stakeholders. That's why we started with this scope of evidence. Public consultations we will launch this month, I think, now. And of course, then during the working process, we are going to consult you non-stop. And something that is also very, very, very important. You mentioned Choose Europe, and it's not a matter of money only, exactly. No matter that I'm really, really very happy that these campaigns start to bring results, and we have a record time of applications since the establishment of Maria Skłodowska-Curie Actions. A record, never was that high. Above 70,000 applications for one call. We have 4 times more applications in the last call of ERC from outside European Union, record again. So obviously Europe became a pull factor for the brightest and the smartest people in the world to come and work and stay. So it's and with the ERA Act, I think we will be also, so to say, funding, but also the principles, completion of the fifth freedom, and all the principles that we have in the treaties. It's really crucial moment. My team knows it was first planned to be presented in 27. Sorry people for that. I pushed them to move in 26, realizing that it would be a very complicated negotiation process, and I really wanted to have time until the end of the mandate to see acting legislation, not just proposal. So rely on your support during this process.
Absolutely.
So, many, many thanks to all the speakers at this panel. It's time now to wrap up. You've really seen, I would say, great alignment in terms of the ambition, in terms of the bravery. At the same time, also remain realistic, to see what is possible, to where the universities, where the sector will support, and also to engage fully with the member states. So that actually using the same comparison that Mr. Dijkgraaf mentioned at the beginning, so that the sum of the components would be twice of that, not lower than what sometimes we see these days. So many, many thanks for that, and looking forward to your great support throughout the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Signe Ratzo, for that moderation, and of course to the Commissioner, who's been expressing herself on different files. Don't go anywhere, stay in the room. In just 2 or 3 minutes, we'll kick off with the next panel. So just a 2 or 3 minute break.